The challenge here is everybody knows who is technically involved in this, that Bitcoin is really bad on privacy. I think the only people who do it worse actually are Ethereum. And that's because they use the account-based model as opposed to the address-based model. But a lot of people only use like one account. So they see it's like as if you were using Bitcoin, you were just reusing the same wallet. You get this giant history cruft that just follows you wherever, and then you create all these chain explorers, and then people see every smart contract you've interacted with on Ethereum, and it's problematic.
Imagine waking up one day to find out your government has been quietly hoarding Bitcoin without telling a single soul. Edward Snowden is stirring up the crypto world yet again, this time with a cryptic but provocative prediction. A national government is secretly amassing Bitcoin and hasn't disclosed it to the public. What does this mean for the future of crypto? Could this hidden stash be the beginning of a new era of financial control? As Snowden warns that the government is coming for your crypto, it's time to dig into what's really at stake and why he believes your digital assets might not be as safe as you think.
Is that they're going to take all of the transaction information that they can get. And this is going to start with big banks going on their own personal data sets. It's going to flow from there to people going, oh, where can we get this information publicly? Well, the Bitcoin blockchain is available for anyone for free at any time, right? And how do you train these models? You need learning sets, you need training data, you need data sets. So they're going to pull everything they can, they're going to feed it through these things, and they're going to try to teach them originally, I think this is going to be the easiest thing, what does a normal transaction look like?
Snowden dropped this bombshell on X, posting, "Prediction, a national government will be revealed this year to have been buying Bitcoin, the modern replacement for monetary gold, without publicly disclosing that fact." And coming from Snowden, a man who built his reputation on uncovering state secrets, this isn't just speculation. It's a red flag that something big is happening behind closed doors.
You should have levels of privacy protection baked into the protocol. And this prevents the kind of tomfoolery that we see the U.S. government beginning to engage in with things like OFAC and Tornado Cash. And my reflex here is that everybody gets excited about sort of speed and scalability. And what is so remarkable about how Bitcoin succeeded in the way, the reason that it changed the world is because that wasn't really the focus. It was a factor, it was an interest, but they went, let's make this work. Let's make it powerful. Let's make it unstoppable.
This revelation comes at a fascinating moment for Bitcoin. Since its inception, Bitcoin has been both lauded as digital gold and derided as fool's gold. Initially adopted by tech-savvy libertarians and decentralization purists, Bitcoin's evolution into a mainstream asset has been nothing short of extraordinary. As recently as a decade ago, it would have seemed absurd for any government to invest in Bitcoin. But now, cryptocurrency has become a contender in the global financial ecosystem. So much so that sovereign states are taking notice, and if Snowden is correct, possibly even taking action.
And in fact, it feels like it's too good to leave. We put up with the abuse. We know they're breaking the rules, not because we love it, but because we haven't ever had an alternative. And what's amazing is that we're starting to make our own. One of the core things that came up 9 months ago was Gary Gensler, Gary Gensler, Gary Gensler. Everybody was hanging on his words. And I had to remind everybody that Gary Gensler is not Daddy Bitcoin. And now it's much easier to make that argument because we see that, in fact, Bitcoin is Daddy Gensler. We are winning.
Let's dig deeper into why this prediction from Snowden is generating such a buzz. Bitcoin, unlike any other asset in modern history, operates independently of traditional financial systems, immune to government control or inflationary policies. For any government, especially one with a history of economic instability or dependence on the US dollar, Bitcoin could represent a unique opportunity to diversify or safeguard its reserves. To Snowden, Bitcoin's allure isn't just about profits, but about sovereignty, an asset that no central bank can manipulate, no matter how hard they might try.
Well, this should serve as a wake-up call. We had 2/3 of the House of Representatives vote in favor of clarity for crypto. It creates a legal framework, giving the SEC a proper role and the CFTC a proper role, rather than the conflicting set of regulatory actions that those two agencies have taken over the last 10 years. Congress settles it, and it settles the dispute. It settles what is a digital asset, gives a legal framework for trading and the purchase of those assets, and I think that's an important thing.
At the heart of Snowden's statement is the idea of secrecy. Think about that for a second. A national government is amassing Bitcoin in complete secrecy without any public disclosure. This brings up an immediate question: why the secrecy? The answer lies in the political, economic, and social implications that would arise if a government openly announced a large-scale Bitcoin purchase. For starters, it would likely trigger ripples in both the cryptocurrency and traditional financial markets. The volatility of Bitcoin, combined with the possible effects on other nations' economic policies, would put the spotlight squarely on any government publicly diving into Bitcoin.
Where all of your text messages, all of your phone calls, all of the things that went through their routing network, including some cell site location information, which means which cell phone tower you were connected to, were stolen by hackers. They haven't said who they are. As far as I know, they may not have been identified yet. Maybe they'll never be identified. We don't know whether it's state-sponsored or whatever. Maybe there's been ongoing reporting since then that's revealed it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure somebody will be out there to tweet about it.
And here's where things get even more intriguing. Imagine if a government, say a country like Russia or China, both known for their skepticism of the US dollar's dominance, started accumulating Bitcoin. For them, it wouldn't just be about wealth diversification. It would be a bold geopolitical statement, a move toward breaking away from the US-led financial system and establishing a stronger, more independent economic foothold. This might not be as far-fetched as it sounds, given that both Russia and China have already shown interest in creating alternative systems that lessen their dependency on the dollar. Bitcoin, with its decentralized nature and limited supply, could be the perfect tool for that purpose.
Two Russian metals producers, which are unsanctioned, are using stablecoins and other cryptocurrencies to settle some cross-border transactions, with mostly Chinese clients and suppliers. This is according to a Bloomberg report quoting top executives as sources. Settlements may flow through Hong Kong. The fact that significant Russian firms are using blockchain 2 years after the February 2022 invasion of Ukraine shows the economic impact of international war prohibitions.
This brings us to El Salvador, a prime example of how Bitcoin adoption on a national level can stir controversy and maybe even success. In 2021, El Salvador became the first country to make Bitcoin legal tender, a move that attracted criticism, praise, and everything in between. President Nayib Bukele's gamble on Bitcoin sparked a media frenzy. Headlines branded the decision as reckless, calling it an unnecessary gamble for a nation with an already fragile economy. When Bitcoin's price plunged, the criticism grew louder, painting Bukele as a leader who'd gambled away his country's future on a volatile digital asset.
This is where El Salvador's Bitcoin experiment began. El Zonte, a small surf town where 3 years ago an anonymous donor gave local people digital wallets with a bit of the cryptocurrency. Now the country's expanding the experiment nationwide. El Salvador's about to become the first country in the world to use Bitcoin as legal tender. It will run as another option alongside the current currency, the US dollar. We travelled to El Zonte to find out how the pilot program has gone and what it could mean for the rest of the country. We found plenty of enthusiasts. David's like 70% of people in El Salvador. He doesn't have a bank account. His Bitcoin wallet's a way for him to put some money aside.
I have a low income. I don't move much money. The little I have, I spend on food. So with Bitcoin, I can save up.
And as the Bitcoin's gone up in value, he's seen his small savings grow too. The problem is that Bitcoin swings down as well, at times heavily. Other people here are fed up with that.
Fast forward to today, and the narrative has shifted. Bitcoin's price has surged, and Bukele hasn't been shy about highlighting El Salvador's success. He recently pointed out that the country's Bitcoin holdings are up by 40%, a turnaround that's hard to ignore. Bukele's response to his critics? A simple but striking phrase, one BTC versus one BTC. It's a statement of resilience, implying that Bitcoin's value lies not just in its price at any given moment, but in its fundamental independence and potential to drive a new kind of economy. And that's not all. The adoption of Bitcoin has spurred tourism, with crypto enthusiasts flocking to El Salvador to experience the so-called Bitcoin paradise. For Bukele, Bitcoin is about more than profit. It's about sovereignty and forging a path away from reliance on traditional financial systems.
El Salvador's president says the price could more than double by the end of the year. His call for Bitcoin to reach $100,000, one of many crypto predictions, Zach, that he has offered up for the new year. There's some interesting ones because, of course, we're talking about Nayib Bukele because his country was the first to adopt crypto or Bitcoin as legal tender there. He's saying there's 2 other countries that will come into the fold this year.
If Snowden's prediction holds, it suggests that some government somewhere has decided to follow in El Salvador's footsteps, but with a critical difference. They're doing it in secret. For any nation considering this path, there's an undeniable appeal to Bitcoin's value as a hedge against both inflation and dependency on the dollar-dominated global economy. But why would a government go to such lengths to keep these purchases hidden? The answer lies in the potential backlash and the risk of financial turbulence. Unlike private companies or individuals, governments face massive scrutiny. Openly investing in Bitcoin could lead to both political fallout and economic instability, not to mention the potential reaction from global financial watchdogs.
Crypto. As cryptocurrency becomes more popular, we're starting to see signs that it could become part of our financial future.
Cryptocurrency is a truly new idea, and it's rare that we have truly fundamentally new ideas. Think of Bitcoin as a kind of record-keeping system, and you pay people in Bitcoin to validate the records, and you move on to the next day, and every moment, you have a new set of records. And this process is self-enforcing. It cannot easily be overruled by an outside authority or central authority. So it's like you have at the same time potentially a new kind of money, a new kind of investment asset, and also actually a new kind of computer.
At the same time, we're witnessing a shift in institutional acceptance of Bitcoin. The approval of the first spot Bitcoin ETF by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission earlier this year was a watershed moment. Suddenly, Bitcoin went from a niche investment to an asset on Wall Street's radar. Retail investors, hedge funds, and tech giants have been jumping on the Bitcoin bandwagon, and now it seems that governments are quietly lining up as well. Snowden's revelation doesn't just underscore Bitcoin's appeal, it hints at a broader shift toward digital assets on a governmental level. But Snowden's prediction raises an even more profound question. What does this mean for the future of Bitcoin and, by extension, the crypto world as a whole? The idea that a national government is secretly accumulating Bitcoin could signal a seismic shift in how digital assets are perceived. Once derided as a fad or a bubble, Bitcoin's appeal is clearly no longer limited to retail investors or corporate entities. Now, sovereign states are entering the scene, and that changes the entire narrative. Bitcoin, once seen as the people's currency, could very well become a tool of governments, the very institutions it was designed to circumvent.
The internet is broken because institutions are competing against the individual, while the individual is competing against other individuals. We need to shatter that design, because competition is everywhere, but it's only against the powerless. We need to look back at the avarice of those princes, right? And I don't just mean in the context of government. I mean everywhere. I mean, Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan.
The real question is which country Snowden is talking about. Is it an economically struggling nation looking for an innovative way to bolster its reserves? Or could it be a major player, perhaps even the United States, quietly preparing for a digital, currency-driven future? Snowden, of course, isn't naming names, but if his track record is anything to go by, this isn't a statement to be taken lightly. Snowden's revelations have shaken governments before, and this prediction may well be another bombshell that alters the crypto landscape forever. Edward Snowden's concerns about Bitcoin's privacy limitations dive into a critical point. While Bitcoin was celebrated for its potential to operate outside of government control, It may not be quite the fortress of privacy advocates envisioned. Sure, users can mask their identities behind wallet addresses, and transactions are decentralized and spread across countless nodes. But in reality, anyone with enough determination and resources could trace transactions and identify users, breaking the supposed anonymity wall. This is why Snowden has persistently warned Bitcoin developers about the protocol's privacy flaws, urging them to build privacy into the very DNA of the cryptocurrency itself.
Bitcoin suffers from the same thing, but at least largely because there's not as much contract-based activity on Bitcoin. They only see, address A sends to address B and so on. They follow it out. They chart it. They see where it splits on the chain, and then they try to go where it goes back to a common node, or they track spends, or they go where it goes through KYC gateways, and they find out it. With the tools that I had at the NSA in like 2013, tracking Bitcoin transactions would have been very, very easy.
In Snowden's recent post, he laid out a stark ultimatum saying, "This is the final warning. The clock is ticking." Snowden's statement isn't a mere suggestion. It's a call to arms. He's putting pressure on Bitcoin's core developers to understand that without true privacy baked in at the protocol level, Bitcoin's vulnerabilities could eventually make it a target for governments eager to control and trace crypto transactions. In this sense, Snowden views Bitcoin not as a currency or investment vehicle, but as a technology for liberation, one that must uphold user privacy as a primary objective. Snowden's ideal world isn't one where privacy hinges on external tools. Instead, he envisions a Bitcoin that operates fully independently of third-party privacy services, one that doesn't rely on Wasabi, Samurai, or Tornado Cash for privacy. His ultimate goal is a Bitcoin that's inherently untraceable, even to state powers. He's advocating for an upgrade at the protocol level that would integrate privacy so thoroughly that tracking individual transactions would be nearly impossible, even for governments. In Snowden's words, you have to design your app so that there will never be a head that the state can point a gun at, or they will do it.
Not because they love you or they love us or they love me or anything like that, but because they're afraid their competitors, like OpenAI that I mentioned, are going to build a structure around them, ring-fence them in a little plot that they can then tax forever. And Facebook doesn't want to end up there, right? So they go, well, what we'll do is we'll develop the tools and give them to everyone else so a monopoly can't form and be used against us. Self-interest more so than altruism, but I still applaud it, right? And I'm no fan of Mark Zuckerberg, but he's done wonderful things here. I hope he continues.
To Snowden, this design philosophy extends beyond Bitcoin and speaks to the heart of digital privacy. It's about creating platforms that aren't susceptible to government manipulation, systems that can stand resilient against even the most powerful adversaries. Snowden's caution against the head that the state can point a gun at is a reminder of how governments can coerce or dismantle privacy-focused projects by pressuring centralized figures. By ensuring that no single party holds control over Bitcoin, the protocol can remain resilient against any government's attempt to dominate or dismantle it. Snowden's message resonates as both a warning and a rallying cry. He's urging developers, crypto enthusiasts, and everyday users to recognize the creeping encroachment of government oversight into digital spaces. His call for protocol-level privacy improvements in Bitcoin is part of a larger push to fortify digital privacy across the board, before it's too late.
I think this is really an individual choice, and that's the central thing there. It needs to always be an available choice, because it's different for everyone. When I was in Hawaii, basically gathering evidence of crimes by the most powerful government in the history of the planet, and trying to secretly coordinate with journalists in order to inform the public without getting caught, so the story couldn't be stopped, right? These journalists had no training. They had no understanding or awareness. The NSA had these capabilities. They didn't know how the federal government was going to investigate. They didn't know, particularly back then, how trivially easy it was to hack an identified system. Just send an email with a phishing link to one of these guys that were popping back then. So I had to, do the best I could to kind of train them generally to use things like the Tails operating system, to use things like Tor to route their communications, which was enforced by default on this, which is why I made them do that. To use PGP, so we're not just on Gmail, sending things in the clear to anybody who, can stamp a warrant, basically, or even worse, a subpoena.
For Snowden, this isn't just about crypto investments or tech innovation. It's about a fundamental right to privacy. As governments ramp up their efforts to monitor and control the digital realm, Snowden's words stand as a stark reminder of the stakes. His final warning isn't just directed at Bitcoin's developers. It's a challenge to all of us to protect our digital freedoms. As the clock ticks on 2024, the world waits to see if Snowden's prediction will come to pass. If a national government does indeed reveal it's been quietly amassing Bitcoin, the implications could be far-reaching. Not only would it validate Bitcoin's role as modern-day digital gold, but it could also trigger a domino effect, prompting other nations to follow suit. This could mark a turning point in Bitcoin's journey from an outsider asset to a staple of global financial systems. Snowden's warning raises a vital question. Will the crypto community step up to protect privacy, or is digital freedom slipping away? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.